everyone, and welcome to this session in which we are going to explore what is the current AI landscape and how it sits in relation to the work that we are at Esomar are doing. We are going to uncover the key questions for informed buyers through the latest document published by Esomar, the 20 questions to help buyers of AI-based services for market research and insights. This is quite a fundamental body of work that was seen as a priority already last year with the advent on some quite striking new AI technologies. And this is the product of quite a few months of work by our experts at ESOMAR's Professional Standards Committee. We will be counting with the expertise of to guide and to present a bit better these questions of our chair of the Professional Standards Committee, Judith Passingham. She's today with us. Hi, Judith. Welcome.
Hi.
And but in order to understand where this document and where these questions sit, it is important as well to understand what is the reality, what is the context, and what legislation has to say about AI at this moment. It is for that reason that we have also invited our Esomar colleague Claudio Gennaro, our manager of public affairs. He's also with us, and he will present a little bit where the idea and the notions of AI are sitting within all those legislators internationally. So hi, Claudio. It is fantastic to have you with us as well.
Hi, Xabier. Hi, everyone.
In order to produce this body of work, as I mentioned, there has been plenty of discussion behind the lines, and also in front of the lines. We have had also public consultations. However, the team that has managed to bring all this to fruition is is the project team that is composed by Barry Jennings. He's Director of Cloud and Commercial Business Planning Insights at Microsoft. Judith Passingham, that I just welcomed to this session, Chair of ESOMAR's Professional Standards Committee. Kathy Joe, Consultant to ESOMAR's Professional Standards Committee. We also have Phil Sutcliffe, Managing Partner of Next Intelligence, and Ravinder Rupra, Head of Privacy at Kantar. All this work has been very ably facilitated by our ESOMAR colleague, Paula Fernandez, Standards Programs Coordinator at ESOMAR as well. Now, we have quite an interesting session ahead of us. We are going to structure it in the following way. We will begin talking about the context. What is the situation of AI around the world? What underpins its development? So, when we look at the context of AI, I think it's important to understand that the arrival of AI itself is not a scoop. It's nothing particularly new. The question of how it can and will influence the research industry is, however, a very relevant one. The proliferation of ethical frameworks, which in a way anticipated the arrival of mainstream AI, are evolving into substantial legislation, of course. So, we have several issues ahead of us. One is consumer confidence in AI evolution. This is linked to the trust that we need to maintain and develop with research participants. To give you an example, an Ipsos study in December 2023 showed that up to 41% of participants agreed with the statement, "I trust companies that use AI will protect my personal data." And 60% of research participants agreed that products and services using AI make me nervous. The Kantar Media Reaction Study in 2023 also revealed that 51% of consumers globally have a positive attitude towards generative AI, but this varied also enormously by region. For example, we see that this opinion is much lower in Europe with 32%, and much higher in Southeast Asia and Africa at up to 75%. It seems that baby boomers are a bit more negative, whereas younger groups are a bit more positive about this. Another one is some emerging local cases around IP, which is around copyright, and the discussion of access, who owns, and also who owns what when it comes to data. Of course, arguably, one of the most importantly, we have the issue of our ability to comprehend what is happening within the field of AI in a transparent and straightforward manner, so that research remains accountable for its activity. We are able to stand behind research results. It's really this point that we are seeking to address in the development of materials like the AI 20 questions. So to be clear and to be open and to be able to explain what we are doing. Now, I will allow now my colleague Claudio, who will give his perspective on what is happening in the area of AI legislation, which is a topic that he has been following very closely in his area of work as well. So, as they would say, or at least in a virtual environment, Claudio, the stage is yours.
Thank you very much, Xabier. Thanks, everyone. And indeed, this document couldn't be complete, and this work couldn't have been done without taking into account the complex and evolving landscape in which it operates. AI is nothing new. Regulation in AI is nothing new. It's not something that is starting with the AI Act. It's something that will be, of course, better regulated with frameworks such as the AI Act and other legislative frameworks like that. But for years, in this evolving landscape has been regulated by a set of principles, a set of rules elaborated by public institutions, organizations of various kinds, which have came together and built consensus around what are the key pillars of good regulation of AI, such as inclusive growth, sustainable development, human-centered values, fairness, transparency and explainability, robustness, security and safety, accountability, for example, the concept of human in the loop. Those are principles that for years have been included in legal instruments which are accepted worldwide by institutions, for example, such as the OECD, the Organization for the Economic Development and Trustworthy AI. These are only some of the principles, and what we will see later is that some of these principles, some of these key concepts, have now been adopted in more modern approaches, more new regulatory trends and approaches to regulate AI. We've done our research and we came to we wanted to highlight three main models, three main approaches to regulate AI. One is what we call the European model, another one is the American model, and the Chinese model. The three, they present some peculiarities, they have some points in common, as we will see, and some other points in which they differ tremendously. The European model, it's something that we observe maybe more closely and now with the discussions around the AI Acts. It aims, as we've seen with the GDPR in the near past, it aims at creating a more general approach to regulate AI as a whole, AI in general. Originally, it aimed at establishing a framework to create a prosperous market in a prosperous society where AI exists in harmony with fundamental rights on which the European Union is built. The American approach is slightly different, where we see that it's a more fragmented approach that differs among all member states, and the Chinese model is a more harmonized approach. The AI Act specifically is the first legal framework on AI ever, and something that we have been looking in very closely also for the draft in the drafting part of the 20 questions. It includes a general tech neutral principle and also explicitly forbid certain applications, those applications that the legislator recognizes most dangerous for a well-functioning of society. It also highlights some high-risk applications for which it prescribes extensive disclosures, including clear, rigorous controls to ensure that AI systems are robust and reliable when they interact with humans. and is grounded to fundamental rights, guarding against exploitation of vulnerabilities, for example, something that is very dear for us at Esomar as well. Moving on, we will see that the AI Act also describes 4 levels of risk categories. As we've seen, we've just seen the unacceptable risk. Those are those categories of AI application which are strictly prohibited, and they are included in a list that the European Commission will reevaluate every 2 years to make sure that this list remains up to date. It includes all possible risks that will emerge in the near future. The second level of risk are those considered to be high risk, for which specific requirements will need to be put in place, such as assessments prior to entering into markets. A third category is called the limited risk AI systems, and those are systems that require transparency obligation. So for the deployer, making sure that it clearly describes the functioning and it clearly describes to the final user that indeed they are interacting with a machine and not with a human. A fourth level is what we call the minimal or no risk AI, and those are permitted without restrictions. What we will see in the future, what we expect to see in the future is more jurisprudence, of course, on AI, and what seems to be opaque right now, what seems to be gray area, might be resolved through the work of courts and the development of jurisprudence on new specific cases, which will give us more clear ideas on how AI will be regulated.
Thank you so much, Claudio. This is fantastic, and it is a great way of understanding what is the position legislators and regulators are at least tentatively taking to assess and to address topics on AI. Of course, as you just say, there is a long way to go. How the law is going to be interpreted is yet to be seen, but I think it is important to understand that that we need to set the basis to be prepared when that legislation is finally approved. So those people that are going to answer these questions and that take these documents in have already done part of that due diligence. Now, with this introduction, I would like to invite Judith to this virtual stage so that then she can talk about the context of these documents as well as what it contains. So Judith, once again, the stage is yours.
Thank you very much, Xabi. So we think that almost all areas of research are going to be influenced by AI in some way. And this little schematic that you can see here shows a typical primary research project. I think we're all very familiar with these steps of the process. You have design stage, sample sources, pre-survey data collection, post-survey reporting, and deliverables. If we look a little bit more in the design stage, it might include these types of considerations. So sort of, again, something that we're all familiar with. So we looked at 29 discrete steps in the overall research process, and that told us that 24 of them could be subject to quite significant AI enhancements in the short to medium term, and the rest could be candidates in the slightly longer term, and they could be candidates not because they're not suitable, but because people might not want to go that far that quickly. So in this context, we come to the 20 questions material. So first of all, what is this guidance designed to do and where can it help? So our objective in the publication of this material is to help and support AI service buyers and suppliers ensure that there is an appropriate level of transparency, trust and confidence in the field, and that applicable intellectual privacy and AI laws are respected. So if you like, the intention is to promote fair, transparent, responsible and ethical usage of AI in research. Now we know from some of the other work done by Esomar that frameworks or checklists like this can facilitate structured discussion between organizations offering services and those seeking to use them. And in a fragmented or disintermediated supply chain, this becomes even more important. So our ambition here is to support the commercial process by highlighting the key points, and by doing so, to allow the research industry, or to help the research industry, benefit from the many exciting opportunities that AI offers us. And alongside that, trying to anticipate how legislation will impact and to help organizations plan and prepare as far as is reasonably possible. This is what it's designed to do. So moving on to where AI can impact, and this is really about scope. So how do we see the scope of this material? Well, in thinking about the research process itself, we see three areas that research organizations might consider in relation to AI at a very top line level. So the first one is the use of AI tools in relation to the business itself. So this is, if you like, research agnostic. So it could be generalized business processes. So things like HR processes, legal processes, that sort of thing. The second area is the use of AI whilst undertaking research activities. So for example, that could be commercial research offerings introduced by suppliers, bespoke offerings. It could include the development of research products, services, the way in which research organizations interact with research participants, so that's quite an important one, methods used in research operations, again, quite a big one, could be post-analysis, could be presentation and preparation of research conclusions, or in relation to proprietary syndicated data sets. And the third area is the use of research data as AI training data, usually in the programs of third parties. So these third parties would normally be clients and commissioners of research programs. So just highlighting, the scope of this material relates to the second area only, so within the research itself. And although it excludes 3, there are some common issues between 2 and 3, but we think that this third area requires addressing specifically. So this material is designed to be used with any organization claiming to offer AI-based solutions for research. And I'll come on to the issue of the definition of AI later in this session. What I want to come on to now is to discuss in more detail the structure of the material, what we've included in each section and why. So you can see here that there are 5 areas that we go into in some detail. So company profile, explainable fit for purpose, trustworthy, ethical and transparent human oversight and data governance protocols. And the format of the material is, we say why we think the area is important. We pose a number of questions that will facilitate discussion between the parties. And then we give some context, so why we think this question is important. So this is similar in format to some of the other questions material and checklist material that Esomar has produced. So it's a familiar format, if you like. So the first section on company profile, this is really designed to set the scene, and it's to help buyers gain an initial understanding of the credentials of the supplier organization. So you've got things in here like company experience and know-how. Do they have a good mix of research skills and AI relevant skills, data science, deep learning, natural language processing, that sort of thing. The second area is really to get a general perspective on AI, so how well the supplier has thought about the way in which AI-based solutions can improve the research process and contribute to decision-making in that context. And then practical problems and issues. And we think that sort of by asking about the practical problems and issues that the company has experienced, that will help you gauge the level of activity within the supplier organization, what it's learned, and it will also give you a kind of indication about how experienced the supplier is in managing challenges around emerging technologies, which is certainly relevant. So moving on to the second area. So this is about AI capability, so whether the service is explainable and fit for purpose. And that will start to help the buyer evaluate AI services from a practical standpoint and to determine whether the capability on offer aligns with the business purpose and is likely to provide you with a clear, demonstrable benefit. So we have there sections on explainability, which is really key to understanding how the methodology works in broad terms, how AI is used to power the method and the benefits that the approach delivers, the model. So this helps to start to distinguish between custom-built applications and open source solutions. So you can start to understand the capabilities and possible risks. So, for example, whether publicly available solutions are integrated into the supplier's offering. So you can start to understand the potential consequences of that, for example, handling of proprietary information, and then the use of data in combination with the algorithms and the way in which they interact to train the AI service. So the next section is about the AI capability in terms of trustworthiness, ethical implications and transparency. So this really will help to start to pinpoint whether the supplier and buyer are aligned on ethical principles and whether the supplier's considered other critical topics like potential biases, data security, resilience, that sort of thing. It helps to facilitate a discussion about the processes to verify and validate the output for accuracy, measurement and assessment of validity. We know there's lots of literature and discussions about some of the challenges around AI, around bias and representativeness, and whether there's risk in generating inconsistent or incorrect outcomes. And this section helps to understand the processes that the supplier uses to ensure reliable results, which is a critical point. And there's supplementary questions here for tools using generative AI. For example, what measures are taken to identify hallucinations, incorrect answers, minimize bias, and tools using synthetic data, which is starting to be a little bit of a hot topic. So, for example, is there validation to compare synthetic data outputs to primary research outputs, or real world outputs, we might call them? How the supplier flags and distinguishes between data derived from natural persons and data which is derived synthetically. So we think transparency about this is very important. This section also focuses on understanding limitations of AI models and how those limitations are mitigated. So is the supplier transparent about the limitations of their offering? And it drives at the provision of sufficient technical information to enable assessment of the validity of the results, and therefore the conclusions drawn, which is a critical part of things like the code of conduct that we operate with. And it also covers the topic of duty of care. So this is designing AI capabilities with a duty of care to humans in mind. Now, we all know that ethics plays a vital role in research, and this question will help buyers to evaluate whether the suppliers considered within the design of their service, whether there might be any potential negative consequences of using their AI model for people, things like increased prejudice, financial harm, misinformation, which is worthy of consideration. So then on D, section D, this is looking at how you provide human oversight of your AI systems, which is quite an important feature, both of the ethical guidance that you see and also some emerging legislation. So this section will help buyers understand how human oversight and involvement have been considered both in the development and in the practical functioning operation of the AI applications under consideration. And the answers here and the discussion between the parties will help to determine how to identify what role the human plays when building solutions driven with AI and working with data that is processed and analysed with AI in an ethical and responsible way. So it's looking at things like transparency, so ensuring it's clear when AI technologies are being used in any part of the service, so identifying AI generated images and text, for example, being explicit about whether there are ethical principles defined and how in practice that helps to determine the AI's behavior. So this is about ensuring that human-defined ethical principles are the governing force behind AI-driven solutions, acknowledging both the difficulty of that, but also the importance of it. And then responsible innovation. So how does the AI solution integrate human oversight to ensure ethical compliance? Here on the right on this slide, you can see some examples of how that could be achieved. There's a lot more detail in the material on what these things mean, but obviously this depends on the size of the company, sophistication, nature of the company providing the solution. The final section covers data governance protocols, and this is designed to help buyers understand whether the supplier is appropriately aware of the legal frameworks that govern AI-based activities. So AI suppliers and clients are, of course, subject to data protection and related information security requirements imposed by data protection laws and regulations. These vary by jurisdiction, and they're generally interpreted based on where the data were collected or the location of the provider. There are also considerations around laws and regulations relating to intellectual property and copyright. So the answers to this section can help buyers understand whether the suppliers considered these factors to a sufficient degree, which is quite important, particularly in this field. So you've got things like data quality, fit for purpose aspects, data lineage. This is important because buyers will want to understand that data is responsibly and ethically sourced and processed, and it's fit for the purpose of the AI system. Privacy notices required by data protection laws and regulations, and the material just gives in some detail on what type of information this should provide. The steps that have been taken by the provider to ensure that data protection laws and regulations are followed. So with some detail of what you should be looking for there. Consent to process data for a particular purpose. Also ensuring that AI systems are resilient to adversarial attacks and disruption. And then the important issue of data ownership, so IP, usage permissions. So being clear about who owns the data that's going into the model, the input, prompts, an emerging field, who owns the output, which data are confidential and should not be placed into the public domain or into AI system cloud-based tools. It's worth also noting that this section is designed to be a standalone checklist if that's required. So you can tear that out and use it for that purpose. So I'd like to touch, before closing, on one or two additional areas. The first one is about the definition of AI and the terms that fall underneath the AI umbrella, of which there's quite a proliferation of terminology. Now, our view is that there are a sufficient number of definitions of AI. At the time of this presentation, there are 51 significant international definitions of AI, and we do not wish to add to the confusion. So we think that whilst we've got the right and the obligation to create clear glossaries and definitions within the sphere of research and insight, so that's our area, if you like, around things like codes, guidance, we felt that it was pragmatic in this case to take the IAPP definition of AI. So that's the International Association of Privacy Professionals, and we've sought their permission to use and quote it in this guidance, and some definitions that fall under the heading there. So you've got things like terms like data hallucination and a lot of other useful terms where they've come to, they've created a very good glossary, we think. And we also note the adoption of the OECD AI definition by the EU within the guidance, which is quite a recent development. So we've got some, we hope, useful glossary, and also would refer you back to the IAPP website, which has got a lot of useful information and the fuller glossary in it. The second point is about the nature of the topic itself, about the AI topic. We know, the workgroup knows, that this guidance may be out of date within quite a short time window. We know that it may be more relevant to some organisations than others, and it may be more relevant to certain AI applications by virtue of the fact that the field of AI is accelerating and diversifying at an astonishing rate. Nevertheless, it's necessary to start somewhere, and this is the somewhere. So recognising all of these points, we plan to update this material on a frequent basis, considering this dynamic business and legislative environment. So we will, in due course, be seeking feedback about how and where the material is helpful and how we can practically build on it. So really the objective here, through the Esomar Professional Standards Committee work, is to provide tools and guidance that help the commercial process. That's what we want to do. We want to have a positive impact on the industry with what we work on and what we produce. And we want to help play our role in helping research realise its full AI potential with the appropriate safeguards. So that's kind of our ambition for this piece of work. Finally, activation, getting on with it. That's always the point of producing this kind of material. If it sits on the shelf, it's not of any use to anyone. So I'm really hoping, and we're really hoping in Esomar, that you're going to download and access this guidance, and that you will use this guidance within your business, and that it will be helpful and useful to you in the way that we've described. So if you click on this smart code, you'll be able to access the 20 questions material. You'll be able to see some of the other support activities planned by the Esomar marketing team, and to see how you can provide feedback as this activity evolves. So thank you for listening.
No, thank you, Judith. This has been a fantastic review of this very important document. I particularly like this idea of making these documents a point of conversation. Many of the buyers are going to take this document and ask before signing some of the contracts, before purchasing or getting into some of these agreements for some of these AI tools. They would like those companies to respond to this. We would be very keen, of course, on hearing more on what is the feedback on these questions. What are we covering appropriately well? What is still relevant? What else do we need to cover? We would also be very happy for some of those companies involved in the production of AI tools to connect with us and share those answers that they have given to this material. We have done this already with some other pieces of guidance, like it could be the 37 questions for online panel suppliers, in which we have published those answers in our website. This creates this dialogue and highlights the importance of basically the importance of compliance, not missing the train, and continuing to create trust in between buyers and suppliers, particularly in such a fast-moving reality, which if we are not careful about, can foster elements of that can devolve in mistrust. So I think this is quite important. And since we are talking about conversation, about continuing this conversation, now you have access to all this material. Now you have the chance to download this this set of guidance, read through it, see how you can apply that, which elements are applicable to you, how it really works within the context of your company, and you can let us know And how do you let us know about your opinion and what works? Well, in our next community circle. Esomar will be hosting a whole open round table discussion in our community circle on the next 26th of March. This is part of our more overarching AI task force, where you can also take part of. But this is really an open call where everyone and anyone is welcome to share their views. So I hope to see you there. So thank you so much, Judith. Your input has been fantastic. I would also like to thank Claudio as well for having joined us to present the legal reality of the moment, and of course, I shouldn't forget to thank the group of experts and incredible professionals that are behind the production of this document. Without their involvement, without their interest, and without their realization of the importance of this type of work, basically we couldn't publish or produce this body of work. Other than that, I would like to thank you all for joining us, and it's been a very pleasant session. Thank you all.